Hey Virgo, how you doing? So this is your next 2-week forecast from me, going from this time the new moon in Taurus on the 27th of April right the way through to the full moon in Scorpio on the 12th of May. Now these two moons are pretty big. They've got some big oppositions going on. So we've got the Mars and Pluto opposition on the new moon. We've also got the Uranus and Sun conjunction in opposition to the moon on the day of the full moon. So some big ones, but blissfully in between, we've got a bit of an easy ride, I have to say. I like, if you've watched this before, welcome back, by the way, you'll know that in the previous couple of cycles, there's been so many really high impact conjunctions going on, retrogrades and this, that, and the other. And it feels like we've really done a lot of soul searching in these last few months. And I guess what I want to share with you right now is I think these two big moons on either side of this forecast are big and they're generating a big change. But I think the change that they're generating on is based on the recent changes and acceptances and alterations and new thoughts that you've got because of these last few trying months. So I'm seeing this as a bit of a success. By the way, if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson, and what I'm planning on doing, and I'm going to do it right now, in fact, is I'm going to piece together what's going on a planetary basis over the next 2 weeks to give you some insight as to how to manage this as someone with a really strong Virgo. Now, I don't know if you're watching this because you've got Virgo Sun or Virgo Ascendant. If Virgo isn't your ascendant, then I recommend also listening to the sign where you do have your rising sign or ascendant. So for instance, if it's Sagittarius, listen to that one as well as Virgo. But it's good for your sun and your ascendant. And so hopefully by the end of this video, you have a really good idea as to the kinds of energies going on in these 2 weeks, what you might want to watch out for, where there's a real ease. I'm really up for ease. I don't think we have to suffer. I really don't want us to suffer, but I do think this is a great time for us to learn and evolve and grow through our difficulties. So let's see what's happening, eh? Let's bring on my slides now. I don't know if that's come on the screen. No, I haven't put it in. There it is. So yeah. So we're going new moon to full moon. And that's also known as the waxing moon period, the waxing moon where the moon gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes along. Actually, the moon doesn't get bigger. It just appears to get bigger. So at the time of the new moon, it's completely in darkness. There's no illumination. We're really in the mystery. We have to look deep inside ourselves. So we have to go intuitively into our psyche to find our answers. Nothing is very apparent. And it appears that there's no moon in the sky. We might just get a tiny, tiny wee slither. And as the moon appears to grow, of course, it's not growing, but there's more light to reveal it. So you'll see we get a bit of a slither, and then halfway through this 2-week period at the 1 week mark, we have half moon and half dark. And then as we're going through the waxing gibbous part of this phase, the moon is almost full, but not quite. And then we get to the full moon where everything is completely on display. Everything's illuminated. And so this is a growth period. The moon appears to grow, and we seem to come out of an unconsciousness into the full light of consciousness. I also think this is a time I call these moons, these new moons, these seed points where, we've got a clear blank canvas. And I think it's a time to really feel into how you want to move in your life. What are you really wanting to evolve? What are you wanting to change? What are you wanting to grow in your life? And you kind of sow your seeds, and you don't have to take action on your seeds, but you let them settle in the ground. You give them a little water, and then you let life do some of the magic. You see what comes in, and then slowly but surely, as the seedling comes up and it's viable, you might give it some support. You might, there's lots of different things, and this is what's really going on. This is where you're sowing the seeds and not really doing too much other than feeling into the goodness of what you're wanting to create. And as the moon gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you're starting to see some of the feedback of the energies that you're putting out there. And you might get this idea of, oh, I need to take action on this. Or you get a little a little sign from somebody, or somebody shares something with you and you're like, that's my next step. And that's really what's happening as you're coming closer to the full moon, and you get to the full moon and all of a sudden there's signs flipping everywhere, and it's quite overwhelming at times. It's just like you really get to feel the direction of your intentions. It all seems to be manifesting before your very eyes. So that's a kind of run through of the emotional energy as we are moving through these 2 weeks. But let's have a quick look at how it looks over 2 week, like a 2 week diary. So the new moon's on Sunday, the 27th. Then the midpoint is on the 4th of May, also a Sunday. And then the full moon is in the early hours of Monday morning. Now that might vary, if I'm recording this from a London time zone. If you're in Hawaii, for instance, it's definitely going to be happening on Sunday night. But we've got the full moon in Scorpio shortly after. Now, like I said, there's not too much going on in between. I don't really count all the moon aspects because they move so quickly. But planetary changes, we've got Venus going into Aries. She's going to get a lot more demonstrative. She's going to be showing what she wants to relate to. So if you're, if you're wanting to develop your relationships, you're going to be taking action. As Venus goes into Aries, you're going to be feeling a lot more confident to move forwards and really clarify things. Similarly, on Friday the 2nd, when Venus makes the last conjunction with Neptune for this year, I mean, normally Venus and Neptune tend to make just one conjunction together. But because Venus went retrograde earlier this year, we've had this will be the third and final one. Excuse me. But Venus and Neptune, when they come together, it's a bit like, I always think of it as a fairy godmother. It's like goodwill and love and joy and everything that you want to create. And then Neptune is the kind of magical side of it, the fairy godmother that comes in to help you manifest something. Now, these two, for the last 13 years or so, when they've come together, they've always been in the sign of Pisces, because that's where Neptune was going through. However, Venus and Neptune were in Pisces whilst Neptune was in the sign of Pisces for 13 years. But now, when they have their conjunctions, they're going to both be in the sign of Aries for the next 13, 14 years as Neptune goes through Aries. And so this is like, I think, an indication that we're going into a time of dynamic magic. So if we get this idea of a fairy godmother's wish, or we get this really strong idea of something that is absolutely dear to us, we're more likely to take action on it rather than just dream about it and think it's going to come into play. And I'm not saying that won't happen, but I think we're going to be coming into a time of deliberate creatorship, which I think is a nice change. In the second week, we got a couple of sextiles that I think are really going to build us up and help us feel quite strong. There are actually loads of sextiles. I'll show you on the charts in just a second, but these are when they go exact. Mercury and Jupiter, that's encouraging more communication and a greater sense of friendliness and team playing. We got another Venus aspect. This one is in an exact sextile to Pluto on the 6th of May, where things can get quite sensuous, should you wish for that to happen. We've also got Mercury in a conjunction to Chiron, where people are a lot more open, really sort of discussing things that are quite vulnerable to them, but I guess they're feeling like they've got nothing to lose. So I like that. Obviously, Mercury is your ruling planet, so it's an important one for you. And then finally, again, another Mercury's going into Taurus, and you're coming to a stage. I think you're going to be a lot more practical in the way you're communicating. I mean, Virgo, you're an earth sign, and Mercury going into a fellow earth sign is nice. It's grounded. I really feel that the way you're communicating in your life and the way you're thinking is really taking on a very strong practical edge, and it's grounded as well. So you're not going to be rushing into conclusions. You're going to be taking your time, and I think this is going to serve you really beautifully. So I'm going to bring up the charts, but just before I do, I want to say a massive thank you to everybody that supports this channel in the ways that you support it. Obviously, there's loads of different ways you can support me and this channel. Some people buy me a coffee, and there's a link below in the description. And lots of people have joined my membership, and I'll tell you about that at the end. It might be of interest, but thank you. If you support this channel, I really, really appreciate you. So these are the three charts that I'm looking at. So this is the new moon one. You'll see there's the moon and the sun in Taurus, really show at 7 degrees in the sign of Taurus, really showing that they're together. And the exact opposition between Mars and Pluto. Yep, that is edgy. I'll be talking. I will pay some attention to that because this is a big pattern that we've been under for quite some time. Then on the 4th of May, by that time the moon has moved over here, because the moon's the fastest moving body in this chart. So she's just over here. She's gone halfway, and then the last chart you'll see she gets down to Scorpio, and that's when she's in the full moon position in opposition to the sun. By this time the sun has moved across and is coming into a conjunction with Uranus. So this is big. So on the day of the full moon, you've got this massive opposition between Uranus and the sun and the moon. And then you've still got the remnants of the Pluto and Mars opposition. This is a crazy, crazy strong day. But anyway, let's go back and understand how this new moon in Taurus, and this is very much about your 9th house. The 9th house, I love the 9th house. In fact, to me, I really got a strong resonance with the 9th house. The 9th house is all about, well, lots of things. On the one hand, it's about seeing the world and wanting to be in the world and to have as big a context as you can. Anything that's different is more accepted in the 9th house, so there's an open-mindedness, a desire to share things and to share your knowledge as well. There's a really strong energy of mentorship, coming to, into mastery, like learning and learning and learning and learning, really studying and then wanting to share that out. So broadcasting and writing also come under this 9th house category. But it's also about learning more about the sort of contextual subjects of life. So that could be religion and spirituality, the nature of language, the nature of philosophy, politics really comes in, legal things really come in, anything where there's a context and there's no like black and white, where everything is in a shade of gray. Sorry. So this particular house is really quite important because it's enriching your life. It's enriching your experience. And so I see this as a place where we are really looking for a certain amount of freedom, the freedom to make our own little explorations, to make our own decisions about what we need to know and how we want to move forward. So this new moon is powerful. This new moon may well be the time when you decide to be yourself and to love everything that is different about you. This might be the time when you revel in everything that and have this strong sense of, I want to share it. I want to share it on whatever channel or course or school or wherever you want to share your message. Might just be down the pub, I don't know, but there's a sense of sharing something of value, something that's taken you a while to learn maybe, but you see the value in it and it can expand the experience of other people. It's also a time when you want to move around a lot and see outside of what's normal and to tune into everything that is sort of extra exciting and new. It's a big adventure. And so this adventurousness, interestingly, this new moon is it's in a T-square with Mars and Pluto. And these guys have been in an opposition for the best part of, they were coming into an opposition at the end of October. Then they went exactly into their first opposition on the 3rd of November, the second on the 3rd of January. And then this is the last one. Now, I've gone back to see when there was the last time these two came into opposition, like 3 times in one series. And it was 2007, September 2007 until March 2008. It's a long time. This isn't a normal occurrence. If you've got a strong Scorpio influence in your chart, Virgo, you may well find that this has really exhausted you. But, I want to talk about where this is in your chart because, Mars comes into an opposition with Pluto every couple of years. And so even when this one passes away, it's important to log what you've learned about it because Pluto is only moving this far in 20 years, in the next 20 years. So every opposition is going to be across the 6th house and the 12th house. And these are our houses to do with, I guess we could say, physical health and the mental or spiritual health, emotional health. And we could say our physical body and our physical manifestation in life and our dematerialization, our dissolution in life. So, as we're going through our house, like our houses in our chart, this is a time when we're really building together all the building blocks of our life and really trying to do something concrete. It's a place where we spend our day to day, and we put a lot of energy into this area. It shows our ability to look after ourselves, to heal ourselves, to use discernment and care for ourselves and exercise and this, that, and the other. And also how we bring in physical, like physical materialism, so that we've got security. And then by the time we come around here, we're kind of dissolving. We're coming out of this story of materialization. We're coming into a time of wondering. We are kind of coming to the end of a life cycle. We're coming to a new sense of spirituality and something deeper that's not physical. And so this opposition is interesting because both of these planets, which rule Scorpio, and in your chart is all to do with the community and what's normal, what you grew up knowing. This is quite a challenge. I'm guessing you've learned lots in your life about what it is to belong to the material world, and maybe not so much about what it takes to belong to the spiritual world. That's something most of us have to learn on our own, unless you're lucky enough to have some really good guides around you. Some people who have been there and done that, and who kind of stepped out of the material world, like people who have had quite an open way of seeing things. But for most of us, we've had to learn this ourselves, and it hasn't been easy. And so, this is our physical survival, and it shows us where we're doing stuff in our jobs, and how busy we are, how organized we are. And Pluto here is really showing this really strong sense of must do it like this way. I must have complete control over this, because if I don't, it's all going to go. It's all going to get really messy. Weirdly, I think Pluto shows us where we do too much and try and control too much. So Pluto is also showing us where we're doing things out of fear. So anywhere where you believe that if you don't do something, your life's going to fall apart, or your health's going to fall apart, or there's something wrong, and you're working your ass off to try and get it all like watertight so you don't have to suffer what you fear is coming. All of that is actually not helping you. It's that like fear leading to control. This is going to be quite a strong learning that you've got going on with Pluto through here over the next 20 years. Now, Mars, interestingly, coming through here isn't very comfortable in this kind of part of the chart, but he's actively wanting you to dive into a different part of life, maybe your beliefs, maybe everything underpins how you are operating in the world. Maybe you're changing your operating system right now because you realize that actually putting all this energy down here is knackering, and it's not really giving you that security that you thought it would give you anyway. So this is about finding the spiritual security. And interestingly, what is removing some of this tension, but in quite a dynamic way, is this feeling of, maybe if I escape this like day-to-day work life and needing to be responsible for my body, and also escape this like really strong desire to know myself, but actually just go on an adventure, it would just happen naturally. Or maybe if I study, all of a sudden these other things will just fall away and I'll find the integration. Excuse me one second. So yeah, I mean, this new moon is really representing something. It's, I think, taking you out of whatever survival strategies you've been working on behind the scenes since October. And whatever you learn from this, you're going to be routinely tested on every couple of years as Mars comes back into the sign of Leo and inevitably goes into an opposition with Pluto. So whatever you learn in this next 2 weeks, journal it and send yourself a message to watch out for, something. I think the next one actually starts in 2006. but towards the end of the year. So yeah, really important to sort of notice what's going on. Now, these points here are quite exciting. These lovely blue lines are showing where there's a lot of exciting stuff happening again, where you don't have to be tense. And one of the ways this is showing up is through your relationships. So, with Saturn and the North Node and Venus just in this part of your chart about relationships, and then stuff moving into that interesting space between you plus the other person and all the mucky energy that goes on between. And by mucky, I'm not referring to the sensuousness and sexual energy, but the failed expectations and resentments that might happen within a relationship. So, but it feels like when you're in the space of the relationship, it gives you enough context to kind of work out what's material and what's physical. Because when you're relating to another human, obviously there is a very physical side, but there is that soul level. And I think actually sometimes just being in the relationship is what evolves you, because it's giving you constant feedback. Anyway, as this 2 weeks goes on, in the first quarter phase, the moon comes through here. And this could be a time when you're feeling very, very sensitive, because, you're feeling that there is more to life than you already know. It's really, really strong. And Mars is in such a strong position. It's almost as if, I don't know if you've got any spiritual friends or friends that you trust that have a very sort of different way of living and a different way of seeing things. But I think there's a lot of learning and a real desire to go much deeper. And Mars is just poised and ready to do that, as we're going through this time. So yeah, this first week I think is in the mystery of life. And maybe you're noticing what's going on in your physical life, but really wanting to solve it at an emotional and spiritual level. Then as we're going through right to the end of this time, coming into the full moon in Scorpio, what I really see is the moon coming into this place of community and also normality. This part of the chart is all about what we already know to be true. What we've already tried and tested and said, yeah, that is my truth. I totally understand that. And all of your friends and cousins and siblings and things like that, the people you grew up with, the related nature of what you know the world to be is very much captured here. And it's at odds with your desire to be seen in the world and to study in the world and to do something very different in the world and to be your freaky little self, however freaky you are. Or, I think of myself as being quite normal, but compared to people, but then I say, oh yeah, I'm an astrologer, and most people don't do astrology. A lot of people maybe have, a job that, to me, it's really normal. And to you, whatever is exotic about you might seem really, really normal. But to the people around you, you might seem like really, really far out and really, really different. And so this particular full moon in Scorpio is really bringing up those tensions. And of course, the full moon in Scorpio is, in fact, like Scorpio is ruled by traditionally by Mars and by modern day standards by Pluto. And so these two planets really do have something to do with this full moon in Scorpio. So to me, what I'm seeing is there's a real desire to go to the spirit and go to the adventure, versus what is normal and what builds security. And of course, what you grew up with and the peers and the programming and all of that is most people's route to security. And so that's maybe where some of this tension is coming from. Now, if you wanted to go deeper into this, I do also do 2 extra forecasts for every sign of the zodiac, every 2-week cycle. And so there's a relationship and connection forecast that I'm doing for Virgo. I'm going to record it straight after this, in fact, where I'll be looking at the love rulers, the sexual rulers, and the sort of fun sex and sort of intimacy. I guess we could say intimacy and enjoying life and lifting yourself up, and also the long-term emotional and sexual relationship. our friendships, what goes on at home. I'll be looking at the planets and how they relate just to love. I'll also be looking at the career and ambition forecast, where I'm really focusing up on this part of the chart, this part of the chart, and this one. So really looking at your career, your work, and your money, and how you're handling that. Now, if you're interested in that and would like to listen to those, you might find my new membership to be useful. So it's hosted on school.com. It's www.skool, so it's school with a K, not a CH, /Feel Good Astrology. And you get the chance to have 1 week's free trial. So you can give it a go and have a little snoop around and see what it's like. Thereafter, it's $22 a month. But every fortnight, so if I'm doing a new moon to full moon or a full moon to new moon, so there's 2 of those each month, you'll get a relationship and connections forecast for all 12 signs of the zodiac. And also there'll be 2 career and ambition forecasts, literally where I'm examining these charts and then just taking them in the love or career and money route. And for a lot of people, that's what they've got the membership for. They literally just check in to get those. But for instance, if you are wanting to make some friends and to hang out a little bit, I do have a hangout each month online on a Zoom call. And, I put a shout out a few days before and say, look, what is it you'd like to explore? I put up some options, and then that's what we do. I had a hangout, met up with some of my members a couple of nights ago. And it's great. We've been exploring patterns in our life, how these long-term life-changing events occurred and where they were occurring in our birth chart. And so learning together and sharing together is really powerful. So you might like that, to explore things at a deeper level. And if you've been considering having a consultation or maybe attending a webinar, I'm going to be launching some of those soon and doing courses. I've also got discounts for members because you're supporting my channel. So, if that sounds like something you might be interested in, then check it out. Just go to www.school.com /Feel Good Astrology. And of course, it's not just for you really, if you've got a husband or a wife or boyfriend or girlfriend or children or a mum or a dad or whatever, and they're going through something, you can see what's going on for them. If you know their sun sign or their ascendant sign, you can check out what's going on for them and let them know, so it's not just for you really. You can help some of the people closest to you, which I have to say, that's one of the things that I would be looking at it for. So there you go. I hope that's helpful to you, Virgo. And like I say, if you want to know about the romance and the money, then check it out. Go there right now. But have a fabulous 2 weeks ahead. I hope this all works out nicely for you. These are interesting times for sure. And hopefully catch you in another couple of weeks. So anyway, have a good one. Catch you real soon. Bye for now.